have 4 fabulous panelists, and I want to give them ample time to talk to you. So you are in the DIY organizing workshop, do-it-yourself organizing, where we will be talking about the different ways in which we organize in our communities and in various states. So first off, my name is Judie Burkhart, and I'm the founder and director of Trust Women. We do work both here in Oklahoma and in Kansas. And I founded Trust Women after my boss, Dr. George Tiller, was assassinated, and felt that women in this part of the country deserve access, equality, justice, and so I want to be part of that continuing fight here in this part of the country. So first up, we want to get going right away. We have Kendell Nash, and she is the director of the Kentucky Health Justice Network, and formerly she was the development director of the ACLU of Kentucky, and she is going to share what she is doing.
Hello. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for having me. This is my first time to Oklahoma, and it's been very welcoming and loving, so I appreciate that welcome. So the Kentucky Health Justice Network is a project of the Abortion Access Project out of Boston. And I want to start by giving you a little context of Kentucky, and then I'll go into specifically the organizing that I was asked to talk about for this panel. Kentucky is primarily a rural state. 80% of the women that live in Kentucky live in a county that does not have an abortion provider. We have 1 abortion provider with 2 different sites. And the average woman lives about 1.5 to 4 hours away from that abortion provider. We have 4 distinct regions in the state: Western Kentucky, Central Kentucky, Northern Kentucky, and Eastern Kentucky. They're very diverse in culture, in geography, in economy, in access to information. And I've been asked to talk specifically about our Eastern Kentucky work, which is probably the most segregated section of the state for multiple reasons. The project that we have in Eastern Kentucky is called the Eastern Kentucky Reproductive Health Project. AAP and KHJN, before my time, I'm the second director for KHJN. Before my time, they partnered with an organization called Appalachia, which is a media institute in Eastern Kentucky, and they launched this the EKRHP, is what I would call it because it's shorter, project. Because in Eastern Kentucky, it's segregated by geography. It's in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains. It's hard to get to if you don't have a car. You can't travel around. It's isolated in terms of not only geography, in terms of it's like going back in time, I'll put it that way. When you travel, I'm an outsider, though I was born and raised in Kentucky. I'm an outsider when I go there. We have an organizer there, and she describes it as a clan-like mentality, clan with a small c, not a capital K. And everybody's really protective of their communities. Even if they don't like their neighbors, they don't want anybody to mess with their neighbors when they're from the outside. Many folks live in hollows, which I was in my 20s before I knew the word was hollow. I always heard it was holler, and I was really embarrassed when I found out it was hollow. But a hollow is essentially a crevice at the top of a mountain. It's like a valley, but without the ground to make food. It's a rocky valley, essentially. There's not the capability to grow your own food and have your own water. Many folks that live in Eastern Kentucky still live without internet access, phone, their own transportation. Many families share 1 car. Our organizer in Eastern Kentucky doesn't have running water in her house. She has to travel down, and she collects water off the side of the mountain as it trickles down, which just blows my mind. In 2012, she's still doing this. I want to make sure I get all my notes. So it's obviously composed of a lot of small communities, and everyone knows everyone, so there's not very much privacy. When you think about health access, well, okay, so let me back up. So first of all, there's not many there's not much infrastructure for internet access in Eastern Kentucky, and even if there was, people don't have money to buy computers and internet access. So access to information is a huge issue in Eastern Kentucky. I'll tell you my favorite anecdote. We heard a young woman say that as long as you douche with a Mountain Dew after you have sex, you can't get pregnant. And those are the myths that we have to dispel. It's very scary on many levels. And those are the things that we have to back up. We can't even start talking about abortions and adoptions, and we can't even get to that because we have to tell people that there's other healthcare things that are taking priority, like don't put Mountain Dew in your vagina. Come on. Privacy doesn't exist because everybody knows everybody. If you want to schedule a personal doctor appointment, if you want to schedule a pap smear, if you're worried about something that's going on with your body and you call to make the appointment, you probably do know the person that's answering the phone, or they know your grandmother, or they know your uncle, and then they will call the phone and say, well, why was so-and-so in here for a pap smear? What's going on with her? Why is she having a pap smear? She's not even sexually active. Why is this happening for this 15-year-old? And so it's very hard for folks to live their lives in a personal way. It's just hard to make those appointments and be private. HIPAA is almost a joke in Eastern Kentucky. They kind of say this is just something you have to sign to get it out of the way, and they don't really explain people's rights to them regarding privacy. And because of all of these cultural realities in Eastern Kentucky, health and sexual literacy just really doesn't exist, or it's very misinformed, like the Mountain Dew example. So the Eastern Kentucky Reproductive Health Project started out as a partnership between the Abortion Access Project, the Kentucky Health Justice Network, and Appleshop. Appleshop is a media institute in Eastern Kentucky. It grew out of the war and poverty in the 60s. There were people from across the nation coming into Eastern Kentucky and kind of exploiting those folks and showing how they lived with very little, and it was very exploitive, and the folks in that region hated it and decided that they wanted to be able to tell their own stories in their own voice, and so Appleshop was formed. Appleshop has an amazing, I highly recommend that everybody Google them and check out their website and check out you can stream their radio shows, and you can look at all their videos. It's just amazing. So we started this Eastern Kentucky Reproductive Health Project, and the goal was to talk to people in the region about their reproductive health care using accessible medias. So they used videos, obviously. Appleshop is a media institute. They trained young women and men in the area to go out to talk to their friends, their loved ones about a variety of reproductive health issues. My favorite one, I highly recommend you all go look at the videos. If we had more time, I would show you some, but they're all like 6 to 8 minutes long, and that would take up all my time. But ekrhp.com is the website, and there's videos about menstrual cups, about postponing birth beyond like 25. We have a high teen birth, or a teen pregnancy rate in Eastern Kentucky. We have the highest cervical cancer rate in Eastern Kentucky as well. It's actually a third higher than the rest of the nation, and it's higher than China, Afghanistan, and I want to say Pakistan. Yeah, Pakistan. It's often compared to a developing country in terms of the of cervical cancer rates, and it's just really sad because people don't know how their bodies work. They don't want to make appointments because people will talk. So this whole project was kind of to give everybody a voice and to give everybody the space to talk about these things publicly, because that just doesn't happen. There's videos on menstrual cups, like I said. There's videos on, there's a wonderful video about a young lady who needed to seek abortion and about everything that she had to go through to do that. She didn't only have to schedule the appointment and come up with the $650. We have the most expensive abortions in the country. It's $650 for the first trimester, and it goes up from there. There's also videos on domestic violence. The Frontier Nursing School is also in Kentucky, if you all are familiar with that, and that the midwifery school that Mary Breckenridge started, so there's a nice video about that. So the videos were made, they're posted on the website, they're taken into many different communities. Our big initiative for 2012 is to take them into domestic violence shelters and rape crisis centers in eastern Kentucky, but we're really kind of pulling it throughout the entire state. And we are letting folks sit down, watch them, talk about the issues that come up, and really just give them a space to talk about these things. And what we have found is that people are just so thirsty, not only for the information, but to have a space to connect with other people. They feel isolated. They feel like they're the only person dealing with this issue, or the only person thinking about this. And these videos have given people a place to connect, have given people the freedom to say, oh my God, you've had an abortion, or oh my God, the menstrual cup, what the hell's a menstrual cup? And like, these amazing things are happening, and they're happening in living rooms, they're happening in college campuses, for college classes. We're doing the first ever reproductive health care fair in eastern Kentucky, which is just so phenomenal that it's just never happened. It's just never happened. And I'm going to be doing a reproductive life planning training for high school students and college students in eastern Kentucky. And this is all based on the doors that these videos have opened. They're all on Vimeo.com as well, if you would like to go look at those. And there's also the most beautiful thing I think about this project is that they use something called Play Stories that allows people, after they participate in the session, to go and record their own story about their own reproductive health care access. We had a young lady who recorded her story about cesarean birth. She was forced to have a cesarean when she did not want to, and so she recorded it. It's just moving, and it gives people a place to connect in a very private culture where people don't talk about these things openly. That's really all I have. Is that okay?
Thank you, Kendell, for sharing that with us. And we will take questions after we've heard from the other three panelists, and would love to have that dialogue. Before we go to our second panelist, I'd love to see how many people here are students here at the university from other universities around the state or elsewhere. And how many people are working in or aspiring to work in the reproductive justice movement? Okay, wonderful. All right, well, welcome once again. All right, so our second panelist will be Atlee Breland, and she is the founder of Parents Against Personhood in Mississippi, and her organization was instrumental in defeating Mississippi's Initiative 26 just this last year. So, welcome to Atlee.
Thank y'all so much for having me. My name is Atlee Breland. I'm a daughter, and I'm a wife, and I'm a sister, and OU graduate, actually, from 1998. Glad to be back at OU. I'm a computer programmer, and because of infertility treatment, I'm a mother. And that almost didn't happen for me. When I was 28 years old, I was diagnosed with infertility. My husband and I went through treatment, and it was so hard. Infertility is a heart-wrenching, physically and emotionally difficult process, but we were lucky, and we were blessed, and we came out of it on the right side, and we're the proud parents of twin daughters and a son. And 6 months ago, that's all I was. I was a mom and a computer programmer and a wife and a very busy lady, but I was not an activist. I did not have a background in reproductive justice or social justice. But when the personhood amendment came to Mississippi, it woke me up. It triggered something, and I knew that I had to do what I could to stop it. I had followed Colorado's initiative. I followed Colorado's Amendment 48 and 62 and thought, this is ridiculous nonsense. That will never happen. And it didn't. And I thought, okay, ridiculous nonsense taken care of and gone. And then it came back to Mississippi, and it was on the ballot, and it was for real. And I started talking about it. And at first I just said, this is nonsense. It would have stopped us from having our children because it would prevent IVF. And people said, why? What does personhood have to do with IVF? So I said, I'll tell you 140 characters at a time on Twitter, on Facebook, you know, and I would tell one person at a time. And finally, in early September of last year, the initiative had been cleared to go on the ballot. The state Supreme Court had let it go through. It was done. It was a done deal. We were going to have an election. And the entire state woke up and said, oh no, this is going to pass by 80-20, just like they said it would. And I was telling people, this is awful, this is terrible, this is the worst thing ever. And I finally realized I was explaining this for the 10th or 15th time in 140 characters. And I said, gee, wouldn't it be nice if I made a website like I do for other people for money? That's my business, that's what I do. It's embarrassing that it took me several months to figure out, but that's what I did. And so I put together, it was just a very simple site, and I put together a frequently asked questions section on IVF and personhood. Because the thing about IVF is that unless you have direct personal experience with it, or unless you have a medical background in a very closely related field, most people just don't really understand the process and don't understand the medical issues involved. And that certainly extends to politicians who like to think that they can make decisions about IVF without understanding any of the issues that are actually involved. So I set up a website and I started spreading it around to my friends on Facebook. I said, you know, all of you people who have asked me how IVF works and why personhood is bad for IVF, here, let me tell you. And I gave it to my doctor, my infertility physician, who passed me along to some other people in North Mississippi who were organizing. The entire state in September was kind of looking at each other saying, what do we do? How do we stop this? Can we stop this? We don't know, but we have to try to make it happen. And as it turned out, we had the tool to make it happen, and we didn't even know it. It's called Facebook. Initiative 26 was the election that Facebook won. And I am not exaggerating. If you think Facebook is just for fun, give it up. Facebook is the biggest tool for social change that we have ever seen. We had 2,000 to 3,000 people coming to our site every day, unique visitors, 2,000 to 3,000 people every day. 90% of them were Mississippians, and over 60% of them were coming in from Facebook. We would post to our website, we would post about some issue, some ridiculous thing somebody had said. Every time a campaign spokesperson made a statement, we posted about it. We started showing up to places. We started trying to have events. We had a Save the Pill rally in Oxford, Mississippi to save the birth control pill, which is one of the things that would have been placed really at risk by personhood amendments. We had people, we posted those things on Facebook. Those got shared around. Social networks are such a powerful tool because when you post something on your Facebook, everybody that you know sees it. Your mom, your mom's friend that friended you that one time, your Aunt Betty in a whole other state, that random person whose comments you liked and you swapped a couple emails on a website, all of these people see, and some of them will realize, oh, there's a problem here. We need to do something about it. And Facebook drove that change and put us in the position to be able to start this really big grassroots campaign. And one of the very important things that we did in Mississippi was that we brought the issue outside of the activist base. Again, I'm not an activist. If this were an, I have not been an activist. That doesn't apply anymore. But if this were just an activist thing, I'm not sure that it would have reached me, or it would have reached nearly as many people as it did. What we were able to do was we were able to look at the issues involved in Initiative 26, and we thought about how they would affect people who are not activists, who are not hardcore people out there on the streets advocating for reproductive justice. People who a lot of the time are pro-life. We had Mississippi, like Oklahoma, is an incredibly conservative state. Most people self-identify as pro-life. It is sometimes very interesting to find out what they mean by pro-life. There's nothing like somebody telling you, oh, I'm as pro-life as can be, but I don't think the government should make decisions about what to do. Got news for you, honey. That's a very interesting definition of pro-life we're working with. But because we were able to reframe the message to be about the issues that affect everybody, regardless of your feelings on the issue of access to abortion, we were able to reach a lot of voters who had signed the personhood petition, who had helped put it on the ballot, until they realized that it would come home and it would affect them. And personhood is one of those terrible issues that has the potential to affect everybody. It's not a men's issue. It's not a women's issue. It affects men too, because men love women, and men who are in relationships with women need access to reliable birth control. Women need access to birth control for health conditions, even if they're not sexually active or using it for family planning. We need birth control access for endometriosis, for PCOS. We need medical treatment for our conditions. Infertility is something that will touch 1 out of 8 people in this room. Infertility is as common as breast cancer. And you might think it won't ever happen to you, or that it hasn't happened to anybody you know, that nobody you know will have to deal with infertility, but you're wrong. I'll tell you right now, you're wrong, because it happens to everybody. And when you tell people, hey, I'm the nice mom who's, our kids go to preschool together, and when you talk about how IVF is bad and selfish and wrong, you're saying that those nice little girls in the preschool class shouldn't be in this world. And that wakes people up, and that reaches people in a way that all the rhetoric about choice and rights sometimes doesn't do it. And Facebook helped us. It helped us personalize that issue and put not just a face, but every face. Put the faces of people that everybody knew. It was key. And when all the votes were counted up, when we had election day, we had done something that frankly is one of the big political turnarounds of the 20th century. Personhood had originally polled 80-20 to win. And when the votes were counted up, personhood lost by 58 to 42. That's a spanking. It is a spanking, and it had everybody in the whole state talking. You could not go to a restaurant without running into a group of usually women, but often enough men, who were furious about 26 and who wanted you to know it. The issue that sticks in my mind, and the point in time where I thought, holy cats, we might win this election, is I had given a speech on the coast, which is about 3 hours away, and I was driving back, and it was 10 o'clock at night, and I stopped for a Coke at this tiny little gas station in this tiny little town, and I had my button on, and I was all dressed up, and the clerk said, "What are you so dressed up at 10 o'clock at night?" And I said, "Oh, I've been down on the coast giving a speech." And he said, "About what?" And I said, "Well, about Personhood Initiative 26, and I gave him my 5-second elevator speech, as I do. If you have an issue, know your 5-second elevator speech. Know how to explain it in 5 minutes, in 5 seconds. Know how to give somebody an overview of what the issue is and why it's important, and then know how to dig a little bit farther into your message and know how to bring the different aspects of your message that will reach that person." But I was talking to this gas station clerk, and I was saying, it's bad because I'm a mother through infertility treatment, and it would have bad effects on IVF, and it would have stopped me from having my children. And I saw the other clerk listening to me, and I was a little, she was kind of inching closer, and I was a little defensive. One of the tough things about talking about an issue like Initiative 26 is that you expect that people will be ugly to you. You expect to catch some heat for it. And I was really expecting to catch some heat from this woman who was, she was not a young college student. She was just kind of an ordinary, everyday person who was working the night shift at a gas station in a little town. And she was listening, and I smiled at her, and she said, "I heard something about that. I heard that it would be really bad for birth control." And I said, "Really? You're absolutely right. Where'd you hear that?" Y'all guess what she said? Facebook. And I thought, oh my goodness, we have done this. We have reached outside. We have reached people, and ordinary people are going to vote our way. Ordinary people are going to understand the complex issues and not listen to the framing that they're getting from their churches. And they're going to listen to the facts, and they're going to make a good decision, and they did. And we did that, and we chalked it up in a win when nobody thought we could do it, and it was the best thing ever. It was like Christmas and Santa and the Tooth Fairy all rolled in. It was thrilling. It really was, and I cried on national TV, and that was okay. So, I did a lot of crying during that campaign, sometimes good crying, sometimes furious crying, sometimes happy crying, but it's such a raw and emotional issue, and it was a raw and emotional and divisive issue for our state. We did win, and we've kept going, because unfortunately, knocking personhood down one time doesn't kill it for good. In the very next day after the election, our legislators were right back up saying they would bring personhood back up this year. And they did that. We have now, as of 5 o'clock today, I have found out that we have had a third personhood bill filed in the last week, plus another bill which is not officially personhood, but which is backdoor personhood, and which would cut off IVF, just kill it completely. It would be impossible for Mississippi physicians to offer IVF. And of course, you have your 2 personhood bills here in Oklahoma. You're not alone. There are personhood bills. There's a bill in Alabama. Iowa and Kansas's bills, I think, are going to be dead as of midnight tonight. I think we can all have a party and chalk those up in the win column too, and I intend to. There are ballot initiatives. In Colorado, almost certainly, we'll have a personhood ballot initiative this year. Montana, there's a reasonable chance that Montana will as well. California, I'm not so worried about them meeting their signature threshold. Oregon, likewise. These are, California and Oregon are not states we traditionally think of as having to worry, but you never know. Ohio has a personhood amendment that they're pushing signatures for. So it came back, and it's everywhere, and I knew it was going to come back, and I made the decision that I was not done, and I was not over this, and I'm still not over it. So we transitioned our organization from Parents Against MS-26, which was, Initiative 26, to Parents Against Personhood, and we've continued to work on these national, on these issues across the nation. And we're doing it on a shoestring. I have a political action committee. I wish I had a super PAC. I just have the ordinary kind of PAC that doesn't actually have the millions of dollars to run political campaign ads. We're having a good day when we can afford to do things like print letterhead and envelopes at Kinko's. But we do that, and I had to learn some of the rules of my state. That's an important thing to make sure you do. When you're doing social justice activism, I think it's especially important for people in conservative states to make sure you know what your state's rules are about lobbying, about being a PAC. When do you have to be a PAC? In Colorado, you have to report any donation of $20 or over, or any expenditure of $20 or over. In Mississippi, you have to be a PAC if you spend $200, but that includes your time. So the 2 hours that the 2 hours of my billable time that I spent setting up our website, poof, you're a PAC. When you're working with a contentious issue that your government is not necessarily on the same side as you, it's important to know what the rules are, and it's important to make sure that you're protected and that nobody's going to come after you and your organization for having failed to follow procedurals. Check with your Secretary of State's office. Ask what the rules are for lobbying. Ask what the rules are for PAC. Ask what kind of paperwork you have to fill out, and fill it out. It's not hard to set these things up. It requires some digging through a bunch of tedious paperwork to do, but anybody can be a lobbyist. You fill out a little form, you pay a fee. Some states that's more than others. Mississippi, it's $25, and you're a lobbyist. And you can go down to the Capitol. You can put on your Capitol clothes, and you can go down to the Capitol with letters for your senators and representatives, and you can hand those to your senators and representatives. And believe it or not, they will listen. When you're dealing with legislation, I think one of the most overlooked aspects of political campaigning and activism is knowing how to work the system that's there, and know who your legislators are. Who are your legislators? Know who they are. Call them. They listen. Those things make a difference. They might not seem as big as the rallies and the big demonstrations, but a senator listens to 10 or 15 phone calls. And that's the kind of thing you need to do to be an effective grassroots activist and to bring your message to ordinary people and to the political structure. That's how we won in Mississippi. That's how we're continuing to work today in Oklahoma. And we're here to fight your personhood amendment. We have high hopes that what Mississippi did, what Virginia did this week, Oklahoma can do too. Thank you.
Judie Matthews, and Judie is an alumna of the University of Oklahoma. She is also the hotline coordinator for OK for RJ, which is in partnership with the Abortion Access Project. Welcome to you, Judie.
I'm trying to put this on, so does that still work? Okay. I want to talk a little bit about what we found to be successful strategies that I think other people doing DIY organizing can also use. They're not going to be, I'm going to try to make it broad enough so that everybody can incorporate that. But before I start, I want to thank Sandra Criswell and Jennifer Cox, if they could just wave. Sandra is the director of OK4RJ, and Jen is the other hotline coordinator, and so we meet all the time, and we talk constantly, and we get a lot of things done, or at least we're trying to. So, kind of like, if I could talk about first the timeline of what our hotline is and how we got there. About a little over a year ago, we were given, not rights to, but permission to have the OK4RJ name and website. It had kind of been jettisoned by other activists, and Sandra jumped on it. Had ideas of where it was going to go, what they wanted to do with it. Then a friend of friends became pregnant, wanted advice, and there wasn't a really good resource where to send this woman. It kind of seems like if you get pregnant in Oklahoma and you're looking for advice, crisis pregnancy centers can't wait. They'll beat your door down trying to talk to you about things, and they'll tell you that you have all the options in the world and you have one. So we wanted to kind of combat that. And then parts of what all activism is a Cinderella story. There'll always be something that happens that kind of makes it work. And you can't believe it happened to you. Somebody in the organization had a brother that was working on making hotlines. They wanted a way, somebody to test it on, and we said, well, we need a hotline. We want people to be able to call in. We want one number that we can direct to everybody, that will have these volunteers trained that can answer these questions or get people to the right resources. So we are very lucky in that we have Pocket Hotline for free, essentially. We work with them, they're very helpful, and they've gone on to have many other successful hotlines and people that pay them. So they helped us, we helped them. And PocketHotline.com, we really recommend it if somebody wants to do something like that. If we weren't able to do this, we'd have one prepaid call or one prepaid phone. Everybody had to pass it around. Our volunteers would be on shifts for days. Our hours would be small. What we could do would just be much smaller. So that's where we are and what kind of the mission of OK4RJ is. We're at OK4RJ.org. We blog almost every day. We're really gaining a lot of great traction. We've had a lot of great reblogs, retweets. We're really appreciative. And if you guys already read, thank you. If you don't, please start. We'd love to have dialogue with you that way. I want to talk about another Cinderella story is how I got involved in this. I wasn't in this community. I didn't know a lot of these people. Sandra is just a friend of my boyfriend's. I didn't really know her. And then I had an abortion. And while I was there, the nurses said, well, make sure you vote. And I was like, well, I already vote. What can I do? I want to tell people how wonderful it was to be able to have access to an abortion. So I called Sandra and she said, you won't believe it. We're starting this hotline where people can call and you can tell them what getting an abortion is like, or what parenting, how they could get resources for that. So the way that happened is one of those other things of activism where things work out and it keeps you going when things like that happen. So some of the strategies that we've learned or learning from, one of them is we talk about this all the time. If you're a Facebook friend, you're sick of it. We reblog everybody's blog. We tweet about it constantly. We're live tweeting right now. Everybody, hashtag take root if you're interested in something going on. We give volunteers this way. That's how I got hooked into this. This is how we find meeting places. We find people that want to do that. In a state like Oklahoma or Kentucky or South Carolina or Mississippi or Texas, you have people in your lives you think might be liberal, you think might support what you're doing, and when you put that and then they like it, it's great to find those allies, and you might not have found them another way. We talk about it all the time. Sandra's on a conference call, I swear, every day, and she talks about this. She talks about what we're doing, what we're trying to do, and that's where we got a very generous funding amount from AAP, Abortion Access Project. If Sandra hadn't been talking about it, beating down their doors, telling them what we wanted to do, what we needed money for, what we weren't able to do, we wouldn't have gotten there. If you're timid about what you want to do, you're not going to get there. And if you think you're gonna lose Facebook friends or you're gonna lose your mom's best friend on Facebook, I'm sorry, like, that's rough, and I know it's easier maybe in the city where I'm from, in Norman, than it is in other parts of the state, but you have to be adamant, talk about it constantly. The other thing we've done is we change everything all the time. The hotline looks incredibly different than when it was first conceived. The hours change, the people change, our training changes. We don't have the money to do market research. We wish we knew when people wanted to call. We still don't know if we're doing it at the right time, if we're saying the right things. We don't have a great loop for feedback. We're trying to incorporate more. But what we do is we just talk about, hey, what about this idea? This isn't working for us. Could it work for people better? We rarely say no to ideas. We almost always try to implement them because that's our market research, is actually doing it. There's no way to get around it. The hotline is actually on a break right now, and that could be really discouraging. And when we decided that we had to do that, we had to take it down, we had to retrain, we had to regroup, we had to get reinvigorated. It was sad. We really did feel a little defeated about it, but that's going to happen all the time. You're going to lose volunteers, you're going to lose people that said they were definitely going to give money and time. You have to get used to that. Never ever get discouraged, never say no, always keep trying things. The thing that I think is most important, and the thing that I totally did not think I needed this at the start, and this is all Jen Cox, is self-care. I thought, I'm so tough, I don't need this, nothing's ever gonna affect me. Like, I'm not even in this, who cares? When you start talking about this, when you post on Facebook every day, when you tell people this is what you're doing, you become a lightning rod for this issue, good and bad. So people, will say, oh my God, doesn't personhood, aren't you so upset? They want to talk to you, but everybody's already talking to us about personhood. We're already upset about it. People want to talk about what you're doing out in the bars, like, talk about your cool hotline. I don't want to talk about my cool hotline all the time. I want to have fun, but I talk about abortion access every day. It is what we do all the time. People are going to want to talk to you. It will break you down. Even when personhood was passing, people will say, well, I mean, it'll be ruled unconstitutional, or I'll have to go to an amendment, or this, or this, or this. Okay, well, I just broke down one morning. It's so scary. I just couldn't imagine what was going to happen if I couldn't have access to abortions or birth control. It really hurt. It was overwhelming. If you don't have a self-care aspect built in or is normalized for your organization, that's how you'll drop off. You will burn out. Don't think that you won't. I did, and I thought I was too tough for it. We've taken self-care, we talk about it constantly, we blog about it, and we've made it a part of all of our volunteer coordination. It's not something that we want our volunteers to think they might want to do if it gets tough. Come all the time and talk about what's going on. It helps other people when you talk about what broke you down and how you got over it, or what relaxed you. It's another way to have a conversation about what you're doing, but not strictly about the activism you're doing. It's a way to have fun around your topic. So I can't emphasize how important adding self-care to the way I thought about what I was doing, or what I was doing, how it changed, how I could go on, how much I could do for it. So those are really my main thoughts. And I want to, again, thank everybody for coming to my hometown, and I am so glad you're here. Thank you so much.
Pass it over. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so for our last panelist, we have Linda Robinson. She's a family nurse practitioner from South Carolina. And I think she's going to lighten it up a little bit for us, right, Linda?
My God, so good. I can't sit down, so I am up. I am up. Howdy, everybody! My name is Linda Robinson, and I am a reproductive health lawyer, and I'm talking about do-it-yourself, taking root. This is going to be really easy, because do-it-yourself, you don't need a cell phone, you don't need anything fancy, all you need is kitchen stuff. I work in the reproductive health field, and I work in a family planning, HIV, and STD clinic in Columbia, South Carolina. And I was trained with a medical and nursing model, doing pap smears and doing contraception, doing STD testing. And over I hear unintended pregnancy, ooh, women doing pap smears, ooh, I can't stand this, ooh, this exam hurts, and men coming and saying, drop your drawers, and they don't have any problem with it. And I'm like, what's the difference between women and men, and why are they comfortable with their baby-making machinery, and girls are cringing? And I started realizing the most powerful weapon we have to become a reproductive health warrior is to do what? Normalize sex. And that personhood and abortion and everything that we do, everything that surrounds reproductive and sexual health comes from our inability to normalize sex. Because once we can normalize sex, we understand that things happen and we can be compassionate about that. So what I realized in South Carolina was that I deal with a population that is reproductively and sexually illiterate. All right, so what does illiteracy mean? What is literacy? The ability to access, use information to make your life better. And you know, you come into the world wired, you talk, right? You can speak. No one teaches you how to speak. But you have to learn to read and write. And if you don't have the ability to read or write, you're illiterate and your life is severely handicapped. You come into this world wired to have sex. No one has to teach you to have sex, but you have to learn how to have that sex in a way that works for you. And how do people learn to have sex and make it work for them? How do they learn? We are such a shame-based culture that how do we learn about sex? Who is our first sexual partner? Who should it be? Ourselves! You know, you're a 13-year-old, you're curious about sex? Stick a finger, a candle, a car, I don't care what it is, put it in. And moms, encourage your daughters to look, touch, feel. I mean, I've got girls that are out there, I've had 5 partners and I'm 14. And I'm like, have you had an orgasm? No. What's that? Do you make the same noise he makes? No. I'm like, honey, you've had sex, but you haven't made love. You've been a friction tube for 5 guys. We're not going to do that anymore. I mean, come on. So reproductive literacy is being able to say, let's talk to our youth in an honest way about the power of our sexuality. Because anything that has that much power can be used for what? Good, evil, hurt, or pleasure. And I see too much hurt, too much sadness around our sexuality, and not celebratory. But everybody is so, ooh, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to say. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know what to say? You have it 3 times a week. I mean, why don't we know what to say? And the reason why we don't know what to say is because 99% of all of this has nothing to do with wanting to make babies. People have sex because it's what? It feels good. It feels good, right? And we're terrified to admit that because if we do, our kids might go do it. Guess what? They're doing it. But they don't know how to do it. So how do we talk about our sexuality, this beautiful God-given thing, without it's not about religion, it's not about morality, it's not about anything, it's just how we were made. And I came up with my toolbox, okay? So I'm going to demonstrate my toolbox, and any of you can be warriors. You just have to go into the kitchen and get your cabinets, all right? So the first thing you do is you have to say something like, okay, here's my little kid, you know, we're playing cards, we're doing this, and all of a sudden adolescence happens. Puberty happens. Well, what is puberty? What is puberty? What's puberty? That's hormonal change. Okay, so puberty is what? It is a biological, evolutionary, involuntary event. It happens to everyone all over the world. If you're a Homo sapien, I don't care what your language is, I don't care what your religion is, you are going to go through puberty. And you are going to have a biological, evolutionary, involuntary. These kids aren't bad. They didn't ask to go through the door of puberty. Nature said, you're a Homo sapien, you're coming through. So why does this event that happened, why does it cause the familial, medical, economic, social drama that this event occurs? Why does it happen to have that drama? Instead of, you know why? Because we look at puberty, we look at our sexuality through the lens of dramatization. And that's what we get. We reap what we sow. If we look at our sexuality through normalization, everything else follows. Heterosexuality, homosexuality, whatever floats your boat is going to come out of of that normalization thing. So how do we normalize it? Well, I'm working with teens and I ask them all the time, okay, tell me how old you were when you got your period for the first time. And guess what they tell me? Oh, they can tell me. How old were you? How old were you? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. What does it mean when you get your period for the first time? What did it mean when you got your period? Listen, I was going to the Sound of Music. I was in the 7th grade and I wiped myself and there's blood and I'm like, my grandmother, she's like, here, stick a diaper between your legs. And I'm like, this is me. And you know, I didn't even know what was happening to me. I had so much shame. And why was there shame? Because there really wasn't an honest dialogue about what it was to menstruate. And as women, guess what? Our shame starts at puberty and it goes downhill from there. Why? Because, I don't know why, but you're going to change it as a reproductive warrior. So what is this? What is this menstrual cycle? What is it?
The shedding of your uterine lining.
Oh my God. I'm like 7 years old, 9 years old, 11. It's the shedding of my uterine lining. I'm like, what's a uterine lining? What's shedding? Endometrial, that's like 4 syllables. I don't even know what that means. What does it mean? What we have to do to be a reproductive warrior, what we have to do your own is make our messages sticky. And when you're going to teach literacy, where do you go? Where do you learn literacy? Kindergarten! It is so fun. Why? Because we touch, we feel, it's fun. It's not shame-based. It's not what? Oh, fear-based. You do this, you're going to get STD. You're going to do that. You know, if all that fear-based stuff worked, there wouldn't be unintended pregnancy. There wouldn't be STDs. I live in a state where it's rampant. So literacy is all about what? Touching, feeling, tactile, emotional, credible stories. So I sit there and I say, what is this? You got your period, what does it mean? What's the simplest way you can explain what a menstrual cycle is? It's the visible sign that your baby-making machine turned on. And what is a baby-making machine? We are girls, and guess what, guys? We are really disadvantaged because our baby-making machine is invisible. How do you have a relationship with something you don't see? You're so lucky your baby-making machine is hanging out. From day one, you play with it, you talk to it, you have a name for it. My God, I was in a forest growing up, except for it's clear-cut now, and that isn't even my baby-making machine. So my outward genitalia isn't even what's going to make or break me. So I've got this invisible baby-making machine. When I got my period for the first time, it meant it turned on. What is my baby-making machine? All right, let me put this in here. All right. Well, the first thing is, it's really hard to be a girl. And why? Because of the M&M years. And this is more than candy. What does the M&M years stand for? From menstruation to menopause. I am a baby-making machine. 35 to 40 years. No man understands what it's like to have this machine. This machine only has 2 positions during the M&M years. On or off. Are you kidding me? That thing isn't going off till the second M. It's either on or pause. Even pregnancy doesn't turn that machine off. It just pauses it for 9 months. And as soon as that head comes out, guess what? It's back on again. It is freaking relentless. There is nothing you will own that has a lifetime warranty like this, right? Your cell phone, you're lucky if you have a man for 35 years. Now, you are different because your machine didn't work. And that's 1 out of 8 whose machines are what? Kind of broken or they need tweaking or whatever. But for the other 7 out of 8, that machine is a relentless machine. And if you don't understand that baby-making machine, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't understand that machine and take responsibility for it, it will control you again and again and again. So what is this baby-making machine? Well, God made humans really, really complex. We have these incredible brains, and how long do they take to develop? 9? Well, no. In order to live outside of me, they take about what? 9 months. Well, a bird, guess what? A bird can sit on its nest for how long? 6 weeks and sit and fly. We have incredible brains. There is no way I'm going to sit on a nest for 9 freaking months. Honey, go get the kids. I've got 7 more months to go. So no. So what did God do? He said, okay, I'm going to put that nest right here. And what's our nest called? But it's really just glorified nest. And what needs to be next to every nest? What's next to every nest? What goes inside nests? And guess what, ladies? Our machinery, we are armed with 2 of them. One on the right and one on the left. And they are egg cartons, and what are they called? They're ovaries, but they really are what? Just egg cartons, okay? All right, so here I've got my egg cartons, and here I've got my nest. And what connects this world to the outside world? Magic. It is! And it's called a vagina! Here it is. It's a passageway from one world to the other. And guys, this is the female baby making machine. Boys, look at it, okay? Here it is. And it wasn't on. And then all of a sudden at puberty, and what happens? Here it opens and what comes out? An egg. What's an egg? No, it's not a baby, because if you think it's a baby, you're underestimating his contribution. It's a half baby. It's a half baby. It's a half baby. But what is the body's response to this incredible event? What's the body's response to this event? No, my God, are you kidding me? The body's response is like a bird that wants to protect it. And so your body fluffs up that nest with blood and mucus and nutrients, just like a bird would fluff up its nest, in case this half of life meets your half of life. Okay, and if it doesn't, what does your body do? It hits the delete button. Here it is. What is this called? Menstruation. Your body doesn't say, Mary wants to get pregnant at 25. Let's just hold this till... No! It's delete and then what? Let's start all over again. 35 to 40 freaking years. This thing is cracking behind the backdrop of what? The 3 R's. Now, to teach literacy, you're old enough to know what the 3 R's are. When we were growing up, what were the 3 R's? Reading and writing and arithmetic. In today's world, what are the 3 R's? All sex is either recreational or reproductive. And if you don't know the difference, it is potentially ruinous. So what we have is that this cycle that is going on every single month, I don't care whether sex feels good or not, this is a reproductive act, and it's occurring invisibly. But the hormones that make you want to have sex are all about what? Reproduction. Because without the urge to reproduce, humans would become extinct. So what I'm wanting you to realize is that when a penis goes in this meat baster, I mean, come on, what is a penis? It's just a glorified meat baster. That baby-making machine is not the penis. That's just a delivery tube. Your baby-making machine is what? Nuts. It all boils down to nuts and eggs. So just put a nut and an egg in somebody's hand, and that is what it boils down to. And everyone is distracted by what? Vaginas and penises. No. The most intimate part of sex is not a penis going in a vagina. What's the most intimate part of sex? Taking in someone's fluids. Because fluids are what? Girls don't need fluids to have orgasms. Our orgasm comes from our clitoris. There's nothing on the clitoris that So what we have to rethink sexual intercourse is never going to go away. HIV, unintended pregnancy, what is that all about? It's about doing reproductive fluids during the act of feel-good sex. There is no need to do reproductive fluids during recreational sex, correct? So what is a condom?
A fluid holder.
It's a trash bag for leftovers. Now, when you want to be pregnant, those fluids will be spiritual. I tell you they will be. All right, so let me tell you about the male baby-making machine, all right? So here he goes. He's a wonderful guy, and then all of a sudden puberty hits you, and you go from what? A 3-minute shower to a 20-minute shower. The water bill goes from $20 to $50, and your mother's going, honey, what are you in the shower for? Well, what happened to you? You went from what? Testosterone was coming from your baby-making machine, which is what? It's not your penis, it's the delivery system. It came from here. And there was a 1,000% increase in testosterone. God bless you. Do you know what it's like to have a 1,000% increase in testosterone? I had a friend who had a hysterectomy. She went to her doctor. She said, Doc, I've got a little bit of vaginal press and my libido is really low. He said, here, take this hormone replacement therapy and I'm going to put a whiff of testosterone in it. She was on the drug for 2 weeks and she told me everything my crotch hit, I wanted to hump. And my husband said, can you take this drug every other day? Right? So I thought to myself, if that's 1/10 what's coursing in an adolescent male, God help him. So with a 1,000% increase in testosterone, what's his call? He is a dutiful farmer. And what do dutiful farmers do? I mean, really, he's a and what we have to realize for these males is that when they're going that those 350 million sperm land on what? Non-fertile soil. And where is non-fertile soil? A hand or a condom, right? All right. So let's talk about this baby making machine. Okay. You want to see the male baby making machine before we close or no? Yes or no? Yeah. All right. I know you need to see it because you need to ask. All right. For those of you who have men, for those of you who are in reproductive justice, wherever you are in the clinic, you take 1 teaspoon, okay, of cream, and that is the average amount of ejaculate that comes out of a penis during an erection or an ejaculation, and you say to your, how many, if you could count all the sperm that were in here, how many would there be?
350 million? I don't know. I have no idea.
I know. You know, let me tell you something. When in the clinic, when I ask males and females, how many sperm do you think are in there? Guess what they tell me? 10, 15, 100. And I go, no higher. They go 1,000. I'm like, honey, you'd be sterile. You would be freaking sterile. How many sperm are in here? The average amount of ejaculate is what? 350 million of those freaking things, and I'm going to show you what 350 million looks like, ladies and gentlemen, right here. That is how much sperm goes into the vagina when a man ejaculates in her. And guess what? They love their job. And their job is to hang out in that vagina for uterus, those tubes going what? Where are you? So that means that if you have unprotected sex on Friday night and your egg carton is not opening, and then it's Saturday and it's not opening, and Sunday it's not opening, but Monday it's time to open up. Guess what? Those little bad boys are there going, gotcha! So I want you to know, there's no such thing as an unintended pregnancy. When a penis goes in a vagina, that is reproductive sex. To have feel-good sex and not have reproductive sex, what do you have to do? You either have to keep the egg carton closed, or you have to prevent egg and sperm from coming together. And if you can use this in your kitchen, DIY, do it yourself, and you can talk about this with humor, it's biological, right? Is there anything controversial here? It's just how we were made. You are going to be a reproductive health warrior. You will go out there in the world, whether you're with your friends, whether you're with nieces, nephews, whether in your church, your community, you will be laying the foundation for reproductive justice so that Proposition 26, abortion issue, and everything that comes out of it, homosexuality, gays, lesbians, whatever, all of that can be normalized if we understand what we are fundamentally and celebrate it, because we are a joyous species, and the ability to give and receive sex and in a way that's mutually respected is one of the most awesome gifts of being a human being. Thank you.